We walked out of the movie like incredibly entertained, and we were just like, you know what, that was made with computers. Like, I can maybe do that, because what I do right now for work is with computers, and I'd rather not be making missile guidance systems. I'd rather be making Shrek 2 and fart jokes. I don't think a lot of people come into entertainment as a target, like, hey, this is what I want to be doing, and boom boom boom, here I am. So they hired like 7 of us. So I went with a bunch of my friends, and we set up shop. We set up basically mini DreamWorks at Verizon Media, but we used Unreal Engine heavily for that because, as you know, back in 2017, 2018, Unreal was the perfect antidote to traditional rendering.
Welcome to the CG Pro podcast. This is episode 97 with Adi Ghani, co-host of the D-Noise podcast and senior enterprise solutions manager at Stability AI. You can follow us at www.becomecgpro.com and sign up for our newsletter for free webinars and more. Join us at NAB at the HP booth in the North Hall. Reach out to book a demo slot, and we're going to continuously be showing AI demos with the Foundry. So let me bring Adi on, our special guest for today. Adi Ghani is an innovation leader developing large-scale AI solutions for image and video across VFX, brand design, fashion, and e-commerce at Stability AI. He's a decade of experience at DreamWorks, Verizon, and a VP at Disguise. He's helped drive the adoption of next-generation creative tech, including generative AI, virtual production, real-time, all the cool stuff that's reshaping media and entertainment workflows. He's also the co-host of Denoised, a weekly show that I love, exploring emerging trends and breakthrough visual generative media and all the cool things. So Adi, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on, Ed. Nice to see you again.
You bet. Yeah, well, it's been a hot minute since I was on with you guys, and looking forward to that one as well. But thanks for taking the time today to join us on the show. I always love starting this off just asking you a little bit about how you got started out in the industry, and whether it was something you always dreamed of, whether there was some like early experiences to help kind of make you make decisions and follow this path.
Yeah, no, definitely not something I've dreamt of. I grew up in LA in the 90s and early 2000s. So, and if you remember, that time in LA was sort of I would say, the golden age of film. And a quick fun fact, the 1998 Oscars was the most viewed Oscars of all time. 57 million people tuned in, compared to like 20 million, just the last one that happened. So I grew up around that time, and I worked at a movie theater in Beverly Hills as somebody that, made popcorn, tore up tickets, and broomed up after the audience left as a teenager. And I just thought the film industry was just part of life, because that's all I knew. And lo and behold, when I went to college to get my computer engineering degree, I left all of that behind. And I thought, hey, you know what? That's just LA, but I'm going to carve my own path here.
What made you do that? What made you take that path?
My father. As you know, being South Asian, you're either on a path to becoming a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer. Like, those are the three basic paths.
Get a real job.
Get a real job, right. And I struggled through computer engineering a little bit, in the sense that I just didn't find it super interesting. I was still very much oriented to arts and creative things, but I sort of just bit the bullet and did it. And then my first job out of college was at a defense company. This is a few years after 9/11, so defense was really big, really hot. And this was making missile guidance systems for a contractor. And I get to my job the first day. There is a steel desk, steel chair with a black coffee cup, and the floor is concrete. There's no posters on the wall, and it's just like this super sterile, defense-y environment. And that very first day, I just realized I'm in the wrong place. Like, this is not what I want to be doing for a living. And that same night, some of my college roommates and I went out to watch Shrek 2. And we walked out of the movie like incredibly entertained. And, we were just like high-fiving each other, joking around. And I was like, wow, that was amazing. You know what? That was made with computers. Like, I can maybe do that because what I do right now for work is with computers, and I'd rather not be making missile guidance systems. I'd rather be making Shrek 2 and fart jokes. Like, that's way more fun. So, applied to DreamWorks, didn't hear back from them for a long time. And then I got into a very junior position there as one of the hardware systems engineers. And then that was the beginning of my entertainment career. Lo and behold, I came back into LA and got into the industry.
Wow, that's really cool. And it's interesting that my last job I had was an autonomous electric race car championship called Robo Race, and some of the folks there had come from missile guidance, gone into pipeline at DreamWorks, and then ended up in the same position. So it's fascinating how that can take you. But really, really interesting to me the decisions that you made. The influences that happen, because I think a lot of people or continuously wrestle with those things, not just at the beginning of their careers, but through the mid-career and late career even. We get lots of people who are making career transitions at CG Pro, and it's something that comes up a lot. Like what motivates you to do what you do? What external factors influence what you do? So it's really interesting to hear. And a similar path myself, having tried to get or did get the sensible job in the beginning as an engineer too, but then following my dreams for my sins.
Yeah, your
And
path
look
is
where it's
very
ended up.
interesting. I mean, we talked about it personally before, but yeah, I mean, I don't think a lot of people come into entertainment as a target. Like, hey, this is what I want to be doing, and boom, 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 here I am. I think we all sort of enter it in like a sort of ping pongy kind of way, bounce around a little bit, and then figure out our path.
Sometimes people jump in and out too. I've had a little bit of that experience of kind of dreaming of getting in and then looking for some stability, pun intended, to jump out a bit and do, because industries change and morph and move, and we've seen a ton of that in the last 5 years. Take me back to the DreamWorks phase, because you were there for quite a while. Was it 11 years or so?
Yeah, I was there for a long time, and believe it or not, that's an average tenure at DreamWorks. I didn't know this at the time, but the early 2000s at DreamWorks was one of two places to do incredible computer graphics. Some of the best modelers, some of the best character TDs, some of the best animators on the planet were either at Pixar or DreamWorks in the early 2000s. And I just happened to be this young, guy out of college, just having lunch next to them and hearing what they have to see and look at their napkin sketches. And I was just immersed in that computer graphics world. And I guess just being in the close proximity, I absorbed a lot of that knowledge without even sort of getting into my job. It's just being in like a college campus and just kind of absorbing it all. Rendering techniques, optimization of early day ray tracing, complex character rigging. DreamWorks at the time was building their own animation tool called Primo, which is now an Oscar-winning tool. But the same way Pixar built RenderMan, DreamWorks is building Primo and Moonray and all those things. So I was really fortunate to have that background, and it helps me to this day having a solid understanding of computer graphics, because so much of visual effects, and not just visual effects, gaming and industry and simulations and all of that is still based on that knowledge that I acquired then.
Right. Yeah, it's really foundational, because it's what's making the pixels, and we're trying to build tooling around it so that we're not programming all the pixels directly, but we have some more artistic interfaces in between them. How has that helped you? How has it helped you to come from an engineering background, and what did you have to do to kind of round that out,
Well,
coming from the engineering
yeah,
side?
it was pretty easy for me to understand things like hardware limitations. It's like, okay, you only have so much GPU. How do you best use it? What's a frame buffer? What's a memory buffer? So like a lot of the low level stuff came really easy to me, and I understood the technical limitations and how you're exploiting those limitations to get what you want. What didn't come easy to me was the creative and artistic stuff. It's like, okay, using a 3-point light, make it look like, it's all ambient occluded and, all those crafty things that VFX artists do, upscale this portion of the image and fill in the details here, but make it look like it's out of focus here, and however that's done. So I think that knowledge and things like lighting, frame composition, styling, paint fixing, all those things came later during those 10 years at DreamWorks, having worked in production. What I did there most of my time was part of a team called the Advanced Creative Technology Team. And back then, putting the word creative and technology next to each other was a brand new thing. Now, a lot of us are creative technologists, including our audience who's listening right now. And we combined real time rendering, pre Unreal, pre Unity, with live virtual camera tracking, location scouting, live mocap to create layout for each of the films. So every film from 2009 on at DreamWorks, all the How to Train Your Dragons, all the Kung Fu Pandas, the Croods, and etc., they used our technology and our department to compress layout. So typically, layout would take about a year, and that was compressed to 6 to 8 months. And as you know, back then, animated movies were 150, $200 million to make. So if you can save like 20 million here, 5 million there, that's a huge savings. And that was the whole reason our team existed.
Right. So it was virtual cameras and the similar things that Avatar was inventing. Any motion capture?
Absolutely. So yeah, around the time Avatar 1 was being done at a much bigger budget, much bigger, grander scale,
Yeah.
we were parallel inventing a lot of that stuff. And believe it or not, Nant, which was before the LED volume company, Nant was a virtual production company very early on. Nant was also co-developing virtual camera stuff at the same time. I think there was some innovation lawsuits and stuff happening because it was just like, okay, all three of you guys came up with this, but who invented it first? So I was definitely fortunate enough to be at the cutting edge of what was then virtual production.
That's really cool. It's very special being in rooms like that, and I've had the privilege of doing that on some movies too, which was very fun and sort of a little hairy when you're on innovating in production. How was that? Were you kind of embedded in productions? Were you kind of adjacent to them? Did you have that experience of like the pressure of the shows?
Oh my God, for sure. The production coordinators are always on your back with scheduling. We had to deliver shots or even the data for the shots out to the show, and there was obviously a timeline associated with that. The production executives would come down, and every once in a while, Jeffrey Katzenberg would bring in some celebrity who's just like watching from the side. So one time we were doing a mocap session, and like Chris Hemsworth is like right there watching the whole thing. And you're like, okay, I can't really focus because the Thor is right there looking at the whole thing.
Right.
So there was like an added pressure there, but we were a spectacle as much as we were a solution for the studio, and rightfully so. It was just a really cool thing to watch. Like an animated studio by nature is pretty boring, right? You just have a bunch of people on computers in cubicles. You have a screening room.
Could be an insurance
Yeah,
company if you
most
looked at it.
VFX companies. But then there's this physical space where there's like 3D printed hardware and then cameras and suits and lighting and all types of things. And I think it was just a cool place for me to spend many years in.
What how did that sort of start to shape your feeling about filmmaking? Because you were dreaming or you were surrounded by it early on. You were working in cinemas or theaters from a young age. You went off to internet engineering. You came back and brought those two things together. Seeing filmmakers using the stuff that you were making, how did that start to make you think about filmmaking?
Yeah, wow, great question, Ed. If I were to summarize like a main theme across all of it, all of the innovation stuff, is that when you bring a bona fide filmmaker in there, like, the director of Shrek who did Shrek 1 and 2, right? Or a cinematographer for How to Train Your Dragon, they are trying to they're trying to connect the dots between what you are trying to figure out versus what they know, right? What they know is a real camera or a film back with a certain type of lens, with a certain type of weight to the shoulder rig, and they're like, okay, this is great, but this is what I am comfortable with. So it always kind of just goes back to certain things that have existed in film for many, many decades, right? Like I'm just talking about camera, but when it comes to real-time rendering and sort of looking at something on a monitor, they're like, well, I need to see X, Y, and Z objects, and can you delete these other objects? Because in a typical viewfinder, I would have these visible, and then I need the crosshairs and things like that. And that lesson kind of carried me through after DreamWorks, and all the work that I did was you can't just innovate for the sake of innovating. You have to tie it back into a principle, a known principle, or a known thing back into the filmmaking language. And the better you do that, the easier it is for adoption and for mass usage.
Right, right. You're solving a real problem rather than all the stuff in your head that you think is cool. Is that always used to come up when I was a software engineer? I'm like, I've got this really cool idea. I want to make it. And they're like, nobody's asked for that. And here's what all our paying customers are asking for. So you're going to do that.
And I think like in today's world, generative AI is kind of going through that. It's like, oh, okay, you can do, it's just too much. Like, can you just take me back to how I make the film originally before all this?
Yeah, no, it's fascinating seeing. So going through some of these disruptions that you've gone through, you've seen Hollywood in its heyday. You've gone through virtual production before it was cool, and it's helping to shape it inside one of the only 2 or 3 places in the world that were doing it, and seeing how that's affected the filmmaking process, how people adopt it. What So after DreamWorks, take me from that point, or maybe before. Did you have like a favorite project at DreamWorks? Was there one that just really stood out?
Yeah, I mean, I think How to Train Your Dragon 1, which we knew at the time was going to be a massive hit. Like it had the right amount of like the right creative leadership, and also the book, Cressida Crowell, the author, she was on board, and Jeffrey was like very keen on making the project successful. We had the right voice actors. Like we just knew like if we do our jobs right, this is going to be $1 billion hit. And so when the Dragons team came down to the stage and they started to do layout with us, I mean, that was probably the highlight of my career. Just having like, 10 people in a suit trying to, like 10 Vikings trying to have a quarrel and all that stuff. And man, I wish I took more photos back then. But seeing that entire franchise and then the TV shows that are on Netflix come out of that single couple of years where we were making the first film is just amazing. And as I'm sure you can relate, with everything you did with The Lion King, and kind of just knowing that you had gold in your hands if you had to just execute right.
Yeah, although like I think the 2 movies, Jungle Book and Lion King, I don't know that anyone there felt like they were going to be huge hits, because they were remakes of hits that were huge. And I think there was also this fear that like we could get it wrong and miss the mark, or just I also from Jungle Book, I don't think I was aware of quite how rich the CG was going to end up looking until we started seeing the first renders coming out of Bagheera, and then we were like, oh, that looks incredible. Okay, maybe we are in something that's kind of cool. I mean, I thought it was a really cool experiment anyway, like a way of making films, and it was doing things in a new way, building on the tops of things that had been experimented with. But I don't think we did in either of those know that it was going to be a hit. I think we knew that we were behind some IP that had some weight, but we didn't know, like, I didn't know how cool both of them were going to end up looking in terms of their visual fidelity, and mostly had to sort of try not to care as well, because it was just tons of fun, and that's always the thing that you've got to focus on anyway. But actually, in both those cases, I didn't know.
Interesting.
Didn't know that they would blow up.
Yeah.
I think it was just mostly because of the fact they were such big
Right.
IPs already. And like the Lion King, everybody was honestly kind of worried. Both movies, people were worried. The first one, people were worried that there was another Jungle Book
Hmm.
being made, and we had to like beat that one, either be first or be better. And then the Lion King was like, let's not ruin everybody's childhood, and all the pressure of like the amount that people associated with that movie. You know, it was communicated a lot after it was finished, but also while it was being made, there was a lot of
Sure.
tension around
Yeah,
it.
you're right. I could see that angle. For How to Train Your Dragon, it was a completely new thing, new IP, new franchise, right? We actually didn't even know there was going to be a second or a third one or all of that. We were just happy that this was a really cute, lovable, relatable story about a boy and a dragon. It just felt right.
Yeah, it was super cool. Um, so what happened
Yeah.
next? I know you ended up at Disguise for a while, and that sort of in virtual production and kind of leading that effort. How
Yeah. So I took a quick
did that
detour.
come?
Around the end of my time at DreamWorks, a bunch of us were tapped by Verizon Media. Verizon had a big media arm. This is a massive telco company that owned Yahoo Sports and a bunch of online platforms like I believe they own BuzzFeed and a couple other things, Tumblr, and they wanted to do animation and real-time content because at the time 5G was coming out. They wanted to prove a use case for media and entertainment with 5G rendering, 5G transport of data, cloud compute, mobile edge compute. So they hired like seven of us. It was so I went with a bunch of my friends and we set up shop. We set up basically mini DreamWorks at Verizon Media, but we used Unreal Engine heavily for that because, as back in 2017, 2018, Unreal was the perfect antidote to traditional rendering, right? Like all of the data centers and all of the CPUs back then, all the CPUs you would need to render one frame in Arnold, you would be done with your sequence in Unreal by then. So we did that. We combined mocap. We also did AR, VR in Unreal, and then we published those as like sidecar experiences. We did some really cool stuff. And then the pandemic hit and our fun kind of stopped. Then Verizon being a very conservative company, the early days of the pandemic, they were like, hey, just stay home. Just like, don't worry about anything. Nobody's losing their jobs. Just stay home. Just don't want you to get sick. Which was fun, the first few months. You're like, oh my god, the world is shutting down, but I'm just doing Zoom meetings. This is pretty cool. And then a year goes by, and I'm still doing nothing. And that's when I was like, okay, this is not good. I'm doing nothing for a whole year. And then around that time in 2021, some of my friends started to go into the LED volume world, right? Using their Unreal knowledge, their VP knowledge. They were very applicable on the set of The Mandalorian and all of those newer shows that we're shooting. I was like, I need to get over to the LED volume side because that's way more fun. You're inside of a volume and you're making backgrounds and you're using all the same tool sets. It's like it wouldn't be that hard for me to figure this out. It was pretty hard because going from animation to live action, it's like a whole new set of challenges, right? Live action is a different type of cinematographer, director, different technology stack, different way to do physical production. There is no physical production in animation, really. So I joined Disguise, who at the time needed somebody to just head up the entire film and TV industry for them, which was something like half to one third of their business. And this being a small company, that was like a big, big responsibility for me. So yeah, I hired a team and we did shoot support, we did training, we did marketing, we built products. It was like a run and gun, very adventurous time for me during those disguised years.
That's so cool. I want to pick up on one of the things you said just now, which was because you were in a sort of comfortable situation, being funded to do it, but something inside you was like, "This is not right. I need to go after it." Just explain that feeling, and because you're going after change, which is hard and challenging, and every human finds that difficult. What was it that? Can you explain it as a feeling or a moment of decision where you're like, "I've got to go"?
Yeah, I think personally, if I'm not learning something new, and if the work is not 20% uncomfortable and 80% known and cushy, something like that, then I find myself really concerned. I can't imagine doing something where I can do it with my eyes closed. That's just not who I am, and that's the reason why I'm in generative AI today. Um, it just there's just always something that's gonna be a little bit better, a little bit faster at doing something than what you're doing. If you don't pick up that tool, then somebody else will figure it out and somebody else will do the cool things that you should have done. So, in that sense, I was like, LED volume is the next natural extension for me, knowing everything that I know from my past. This is a new world. They haven't figured it out. Anybody who's on the set of Mandalorian, they're all figuring it out on the fly. And that's something that I think I really enjoy, figuring things out on the fly.
Right. Yeah. Problem solving. You thrive in that, and you just see. You felt like, okay, I'm not. This isn't happening where I'm sat. I
Yeah,
need to go
yeah.
find it.
And, like, just to kind of fast forward from the disguise years, towards the end of 2024, I did see like a plateau of VP volumes around the world. Obviously, I had the access to all the world's data, right? Running like one third of the global VP company. And I was looking. Okay, the big stages are sort of in place, and some of them are even shutting down. The medium stages are really growing. The small stages are just not making sense for most productions. They're probably good for, like, a commercial or advertisement, something like that. And around that time, Sora came out, and some of the early video models came out. We were messing around with SDXL and DALI and early image models. And I mean, for me, the writing was as clear on the wall as it could be. Like, this is the way it's gonna go, with you or without you. Why don't you just join if you want to be involved? So I actually left Disguise, and I was doing freelance supervisory VP work for a bit just to kind of pay the bills, as I was learning generative AI on my own. I picked up Comfy UI. I picked up basically all of the control net and image manipulation stuff, the basics and the mathematical basics of how an AI model works. And this is where my computer engineering knowledge really came in, because AI neural networks are fundamentally run with the same math as digital signal processing and stuff that I had learned 15, 20 years back. So it was really easy for me to pick that up. And then I interviewed with a few AI companies and ended up at Stability AI, where I get to do generative AI for a living, which I think is pretty damn cool.
Yeah. Very cool. What? Tell us a little bit about the stuff that you
Yeah.
do at
So
Stability.
one of the challenges that big brands and corporations have is when they want to generate in, like, let's say, I'm just taking an example like Colgate toothpaste, right? When they want to generate the toothpaste, or a model holding the toothpaste, or putting the toothpaste on a toothbrush, all the things end up being really difficult from a control perspective. It also doesn't look on brand. It's just a bunch of control points needed for them to actually use that image. So what we do at Stability is we can cater to that very custom need and create a bespoke workflow that uses multiple models, sometimes LLMs and VLMs, and obviously image and video models, to get to that outcome that they need. So we turn something that is kind of usable to something that is high success rate, highly usable.
It's really interesting, some of the things that Stability has been doing as well in the last couple of years, and one of them, which happened a couple of days ago, with Brand Studio coming out. Is there anything that you're able to share about what
Yeah,
that is?
so I'll wait for the official sort of things to drop. But Brand Studio is essentially a way for you to not just control that on brand look, but also figure out localization. So when a massive brand like Palmolive will create a product, it has very specific campaigns for Thailand, for Malaysia, for China, for North America, and each one of them are highly localized, highly regionalized. Obviously the China one will use Mandarin and use Chinese actors and stuff like that. So it could do localization. It can also do in painting and editing. So when you have an image, but you want to just change that little thing on the corner, you can do that with really high rate of control. You can upscale things. You can make it color space conformable. So it's really taking AI, which is kind of this black box, and giving it really enterprise grade, high level of control over it.
Is that available to the average punter, or
I
is it
think
more
it
for
is being
enterprise?
designed for enterprise at the moment, but I think it'll be available for all for like a subscription. Yeah.
Very cool. And it's been really interesting as well, seeing some of the people getting involved in stability, having James Cameron on the board and Rob Legato being involved. Do you feel the direction that it's taking is going more towards enterprise, or helping develop things for the consumer, like a sort of Adobe type situation?
So you really have to pick a lane, I think, as an AI company, whether you're consumer facing or enterprise facing, because those two businesses fundamentally are very, very different. If you're a consumer business, let's say like Free Pick, which I love and I subscribe to. Free Pick is, I think, for the most part, a consumer company. You can subscribe for $20 a month, $30 a month, and you get an access to all of the image video models as well as their own products. They have something called Free Pick Spaces, where it's a node based workflow. You have cloud storage, so all your generations kind of live up there. You can reference them. So that's a whole different type of architecture. Now, what FreePick is missing is the stuff that Stability Brand Studio has, is like localization control, font control, and all these types of things that are highly specific to what builds an advertisement or a campaign. In that same vein of thought, I think when in our world with film and television, if you want to build a visual effects tool, if it's consumer driven, it'll look one way, but if it's an enterprise grade VFX tool, it'll look more like Nuke. It'll be like heavily modifiable.
Yeah,
Very fiddly.
fiddly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fiddly versus comfortable. And it's interesting because Comfy UI is that, and say Comfy UI and Spaces or Weavy or something of that nature, like the two ends of that spectrum in the node-based world, where Comfy is becoming more comfortable, I should say. That's not a very good name. But it is the where the extra control is, and versus a Free Pick Spaces or Weavy, where there's less dials, but you can still get some of that. And Sea Dance 2, that's now in Free Pick.
I have
right?
not played around with it.
That just came out in Weavy
today.
I
after this call, I'm definitely going to give that a spin. I've been waiting to get my hands on Sea Dance 2. A lot of the podcasters on YouTube that I follow had early access, and every one of them has hit it out of the park as far as quality of output, quality, like control, and all those things. Makes me feel so hopeful for the future of generative AI. Like, it is really going to solve a problem for us, which is that making content is incredibly expensive and cumbersome. And because it is that, the movie industry is kind of collapsing and sort of pulling back on it a little bit, and cost cutting and budget engineering, all that stuff. I think it'll take us into an era of abundance where, you can have creative freedom, you can have a decent budget, and not everybody has to work themselves to death to make that happen. I don't know. I'm really optimistic, but again, nobody can know what the future will be like.
No, but everybody likes to online talk about it confidently. There's so much to unpack in that. What excites you? And you obviously mentioned the fact that we have more freedom, we have the ability to do things that we couldn't do before. What are some of the other things that excite you about this change? Because you obviously follow things that excite you in terms of technological capability. That seems to be what pulled you into virtual production, and some of the decisions that you've made personally, and the one to move into this one as well. What is it that excites you about about this the most?
Yeah, I think the true democratization of visual effects and movie making, Unreal did that to an extent. Unreal made it much easier for the average Joe to have computer generated content without the need for data centers and multiple artists, render artists, and things like that. Like we did a short film when I was at this guy's called Space Rider, and it was a team of 7 of us, and we built a 15-minute short film that won at many festivals, and we did it for like 100 grand, something like that. Had I If I were to do that again with today's technology, even the way like even with Dance 2 and VO31 and like the stuff that's available today, not a year from now, I think I could do that with the same team, 7 people, but probably spend $10,000. Right. So like that's exciting. That's crazy because now if I had the same $100,000 budget, I could probably stretch it to a feature. And I'm not talking about fully synthetic, like synthetic characters generated in AI. I'm talking about you're still shooting with a camera, you're still shooting real performers, but the ability for you to change their costume, change their background, relight them, add this creature here, delete this thing here, that has become so easy already. And if you lift all of those cumbersome roadblocks out of the way, all you have to do is give a team of 10 people 6 months and $10,000 and see what they can come up with, which is incredibly fascinating. I can't wait for all of this AI generative technology to like really saturate the mainstream and some of the younger creators and see what they come up with.
Speaking of younger people, that's a really interesting point because, and I know the industry is morphing and going through all sorts of things. The main triggers for those being less AI, but more the cost and the industry and the distribution triggers. But so say we're talking about computer graphics, which is to me,
Yes.
AI is computer graphics, it's making graphics on a computer. If we're talking about getting into an industry that is working in computer graphics in film, what would you say to a young person today starting out that's maybe different than what it was when you started out in terms of, I guess, to shorten the question, how would you advise young people who are getting started out? Would you say learn Comfy UI before learning Maya or Houdini, or what would be
Yeah,
your
it's the
advice?
same as it always was. Focus your effort around the project, around the vision, around a creative goal you're trying to achieve, rather than just learn the tool. Ed, when you and I were younger, that's the best way we learned, right? When you start out playing a guitar, the most effective way for you to pick up the guitar is to, I don't know, deconstruct the song that everybody knows and loves, rather than just trying to learn the keys and read music. Don't get hung up on the technicalities and comfy UI because those things are going to change so fast. You can't be on top of it anyway. Just build and create with the tools available to you. And I'm not just talking about generative AI tools. Unreal is still a legit tool. So is Maya, so is Blender, so is a physical camera, right? A physical camera is the foundation for somebody to figure out filmmaking. It's frame composition, it's cinematography, it's lighting, and all those things. Just figure it out step by step and then get to that 5 minute thing or that 30-second thing you're trying to make. And you do that 2 or 3 times, you're going to start to get pretty good pretty quick.
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's like I've just was thinking about myself, being got really carried away with like trying to buy the most fancy guitar when I was learning the guitar, thinking that was going to make me better, and it never did. Maturity taught me that you should just put the time in to the songwriting and the song playing. Yeah, that's fascinating. In terms of, so it sounds like what you're saying, is it right to say that do you believe that people now should focus more on craft and less on tools, like maybe than they would have done 15, 20 years ago, where maybe they
What
could
is
focus more on
the most
tools,
valuable asset
less
for
on
any
craft?
creator, young or old or middle age, is that you having the creative judgment, creative eye, a level of quality that you're seeking, just being distinct in what you want in tonality, in mood. And those assets and those skill sets are going to outweigh how good you are at comfy, how you know how to prompt and how to guide generations, or how good you are at getting 60 FPS in Unreal Engine. Those things matter way less. What matters now is, and even if you're not creative, knowing those creative things, because AI machines and all of the stuff that is scaring us is never going to replace those aspects of content creation.
Right. Yeah, the foundations, the fundamentals, the things that we try and focus people's attention on as well. With the with what you said, would you advise somebody to pick up a camera then
Absolutely.
more than a piece of
You
software?
don't even need a camera. Modern smartphones are just so good at recording stuff. iPhones now record RAW, and you can get lens attachments on them. You can get gimbals for your iPhone, all for under a few $100s. Um, if you just go out and you shoot this thing at, like, a day at the beach, you're thinking about how to shoot the shots and then how to cut the shots into a seamless edit. You're thinking about direction of lighting. You're thinking about audio and voiceovers. You're doing all these things while you're trying to make this like really simple thing. And you figure out that it's not so simple. There is a lot of creative thought that goes into it. Those are the thoughts you need to be having right now, more so than ever before.
In terms of tools, or the work that people are doing now, or maybe you could see them doing into the near future, how do you feel about specialism versus
Yeah,
generalism
I mean,
in this age?
I think now is the time to be a generalist more than ever. You gotta wear multiple hats. There is a saying that I discovered recently, and I kind of agree with, is you need the breadth, you need to know multiple things. You also need depth in each one of them as much as possible. Because we're in such a transitionary period where we're transitioning from 30 years of CG and VFX that we know and love to something that's completely new and kind of uncontrollable and unpredictable and hasn't really been invented yet. Like, a lot of the tooling is still in TBD. You need to know a lot of the new stuff as well as the old stuff, because you are going to be the person that's going to transition all of us into the new era. It's just, if you are of a certain age in 2026, that you are in a profession that you're creating content, like it or not, you are already in that position to help the industry transition over. It's up to you to see how much you want to contribute to it.
What would you say to mid-career professionals like us, I guess, who are feeling like um, maybe some trepidation or fear or uncertainty around the industry and the tool set? Maybe they don't want to explore it, but they feel compelled to. What would you
Yeah,
say to mid-career professionals?
you you have to look at the big picture, which is that the demand for content in every type of channel, in every type of environment, whether it's movies on Netflix or clips on YouTube or stuff on TikTok or web pages, the demand for content is exponentially going to go up. It's going to keep going up. So your skill set as a content creator, however you contribute to that giant thing, is highly valuable. Now, whether you like it or not, economics and finances will tilt the tools in favor of what is cheapest, fastest, best. And right now, it's looking like generative AI tools is in that category, and a lot of the tools that we know are not. So, having said that, that's the big picture. The need for content is going up, and the new tools are cheaper, better, faster. Why don't you connect those two dots and maintain your sort of knowledge and all of those things that I talked about, having a creative bar and understanding creative values? and apply it to the new tool sets. You could take baby steps, one short film here, one generation there. My rule of thumb is I have to generate something every day, whether it's an image or a video. I actually have free pick on my phone. I also have Higgsfield, and I have all these aggregators. Look, you're paying $20 a month on Netflix anyway. Why not pay $20 more to just run generations on your phone, instead of watching that YouTube video while you're waiting? Generate something and learn from that. And I think like that system of change will eventually compound to a big sort of gradual transformation of yourself.
And it all sounds like it hinges back on you being a
Yeah,
creator.
everybody's a creator
basically.
now, whether you don't identify or label yourself as that, because we all have the power, like literally on our phone, to make a frame that has never existed before.
It's so interesting, the whole nature of distribution. Like now, like I heard that YouTube is the biggest TV channel in the world, and thinking of it as a TV channel is even sort of a spinner for some people, because they see it as still this online platform for cute little clips. But when you see podcasts as having wildly bigger numbers than traditional broadcast has in terms of chat shows, or even it's now there's influencers who are becoming news readers. Basically, they are reading the news, they are commenting on sport, they are doing all the things that are in that department. We haven't seen as many of them maybe make their own features, but do you feel like that may
Absolutely.
be
I
coming
think if you
next?
combine a small team with the latest generative tools and traditional cinematography and performance capture, and they know how to leverage all of it, and they can use it for very specific story driven storytelling, they can then put it on YouTube and become massive. They don't need anybody, they don't need corporate sponsorships, they don't need Netflix to buy their show. None of it. It is readily available. It takes time, it takes effort, and you still need a day job while all of that is happening. But it is 110% available to you should you choose to go for it.
It's very encouraging, and yeah, I'm enjoying doing it too. I've wanted to make films and have made a few, but it's so time consuming that you just end up doing your day job and then not having the energy for it afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't
It's
even
very
have to be
exciting
a
to me
film,
as
Ed.
well.
Like it could
I
be, a weekly recurring news show that is animated, right? Like something that really that simple. But if you do it creatively enough, it could be wildly entertaining. Because as you know, the news is pretty crazy and bonkers right now. Somebody could just put it through a
It's a
comedy
lot of
lens,
material.
and I think would have a massive success with show.
Yeah, I really enjoyed seeing some of the people that built things in my classes through virtual production. Comedy was one of my favorite genres actually for that, because there's the immediacy, and the fact comedy's more sort of in the theater realm maybe than in the film realm. It suited it, and I think
Yeah,
it can
just a
definitely
quick
suit the
sideline
AI as well.
story. When I was at Verizon, one of the shows that we were developing was it was called I Am 45, which was Donald Trump's first presidency, and we bought an entire Donald Trump rig from I forget who, but it was Three Lateral before they got acquired by Unreal. And so this rig was really well developed. It was like a six-figure rig. We had a Trump impersonator and a director, and we even had puppeteers as like side characters. And we developed like 3 or 4 episodes. It was so much fun to just work on that. And then Verizon looked at the show. It's like, no way, never. We're never gonna do a Trump show. Like, get out of here. Yeah.
Can't put that out.
So all of that work went to waste. But like, you can do that today, like no problem, and put it on YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it gives a lot of power to people to build a new South Park or whatever it is. I love the show that you and Joey do. I really enjoy watching it, and I'm curious with doing that and having that lens, because I have maybe a little insight into doing some things like that as well. I'm curious with how you, as you spend this much time digesting news, testing things, focusing on the subject of AI, is there something that you guys have explored in a recent episode that you think people are not talking
I
about
mean,
this enough?
obviously, if you haven't seen our show, go to denoisepodcast.com. Shout out to my co-host Joey, who's also a friend of both of ours. I would say what we do uniquely from the other AI podcasters is like we're less focused on showing you how a tool works, what a generation looks like. And I mean, those are all great. I actually look at those YouTubers and understand what Seed Dance 2 can and cannot do and things like that. But we tend to focus more on the evolution of it all through like a 30,000 foot view of like, how is this changing? What implications is it going to have? So then we look at things like the latest lawsuit, the latest research paper, and a research paper turns into a minimum viable product in a couple of months. That turns into a full blown product in a couple more months. So we're looking at stuff that's trending before. So I think if you just don't have time to kind of learn all of the tool sets, which most of us don't, if you just consume our show for like 20 and 30 minutes, you'll get a good enough understanding of what's happening that week as things are changing week by week. So I think it's more of like a news curation and opinion on that curation.
It's cool. I love the name. It's really clever because there's so much noise out there. And it was also obviously analogous to the
Yes.
diffusion technology that is going on in AI, but like really a really important thing, because there is so much noise. As you said, there is so much out on YouTube, and a lot of it comes from people who maybe don't have as much experience, and they're still, it's still valuable. But you guys are
Yes.
cutting through the noise.
I love that.
For sure,
Yeah, that's
and building
exactly
signal.
what was our tagline. We cut through the noise. When we move on from diffusion technology, which is noise based, and I think we're coming up on that very soon. The newer architectures of image and video generation will probably move away from DIT. Our name of the show will be kind of obsolete, but maybe we'll have a new show. I don't know.
Well, it's still, I think it still stands though, because you're still trying to be signal in a sea of noise. At least one aspect of that name will hold, I think. But yeah, I'm definitely seeing pixel based AI
Correct.
models,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
latent
There's a lot of exciting
based,
development, and yeah,
starting
we
to
we
appear.
haven't seen anything really. Like the last couple of years has just really been, step one. Wait till we get to step 3 or 4. Like if you remember VFX, so like we were talking about SGI computers and some of the early days of visual effects and PDI, Pacific Data Images up north. They did, the Terminator 2 scene with T1000 walking through the metal grates. Like that's the stage we're in now. We're like just seeing the promise of it. I mean, it's so exciting for me to just kind of see what the next couple of years is going to look like.
It's going to be wild. I think it's going to be interesting. What are you seeing out there in industry wise? Because having gone through a COVID and film strikes and globalization and the seeming sort of, I guess, knock-on effect of globalization and nationalism, and like people out there are very curious. And I'm not asking you for your crystal ball, but what are you in terms of the future? But what are you seeing out there in terms of in the
Yeah, I
industry-wide
think
film
in
production?
my opinion, I think we have plateaued as far as film production goes. So, like, if you compare like the number of summer blockbusters that are going to be released in 2026 versus 2006 or 1996, like we're significantly less than where we were. I think that is going to be the way because consumer tastes and demands have shifted away from 90-minute feature film, and that's a fundamental change in human society. So we're not ever going to see like a spike of film production going up. Not in my opinion, I don't think, or episodics going up. What we are going to see is a lot of content creators who are on YouTube that are spending legit money on content creation. They're going to want more and more premium content, whether that's a story that they're trying to say, but they want premium VFX, or they're making a legitimate movie, based on whatever series they're working on. Like a good example is like Johnny Harris, who's a big, well-known YouTuber. He the stuff that he produces is so polished. Or if you look at Diary of a CEO, all the podcasts, like incredible production on that stuff. Like that is film and television grade production, but it's just happening on YouTube. So I think that is a big final frontier for a lot of us. And I think the AI stuff will collide with a lot of those newer creators.
Because it gives them access to
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they
VFX, essentially.
they have a team of 25, 50 artists, except that's a team of, 5 or 10 artists who are using highly efficient tools. That, for better or worse, that is our future. That is what we're going towards. That still means there is a lot of opportunity. That still means there's a lot of content to be made. They need people to figure all of this stuff out and make the thing. And so that's where you come in, whoever is watching the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we get to decide or try and shape a little bit from where we are what the future is. People often don't think they
Yeah,
have
I
that
mean,
power.
having said that, you're
It's gotta
absolutely
come
going to
from someone,
have
right?
The Odyssey, right? Like an incredible Christopher Nolan driven IMAX shot film. Like you're going to have those, sure. You're going to have a new reboot of The Adventures, Avatar 3.
Avatar 3,
Exactly. And James
3
Cameron's
hours
probably
and
cooking
18
up
minutes.
something now that he's done with Avatar,
Yeah.
right? So like film and TV is not going anywhere. It's just not going to grow to 1990s levels again, ever again, I don't think.
I've heard some things from him talking about some of the other stories that he wants to make, or thinking about. He obviously knows that there's no guarantees from the way he speaks. It sounds like he's never confident that the next Avatar he makes is going to be nearly as big as the last one, and doesn't rely on that. But they seem to still be earning fairly decent money, and taking a risk there. But he's pretty bullish, seemingly, on AI, and I know he's
Yeah, he's
somewhere
he's on our
involved in
board,
stability. Do you get
and
much exposure
yeah,
to that?
I don't know if you know this or not, but Sean Parker is our chairman, who's the head of the board, who's ex Napster fame. So like, there's some pretty interesting characters on our company. I will say this, yeah, right. The ex
The
CEO
ex
Weta is
Weta.
our CEO Prem, and like, look at Project Hail Mary, right? Nobody expected it to be this successful. Right? Yeah, you have Ryan Gosling, and yeah, it's like an Andy Weir novel, and it had all the right elements, but it could have still failed. But people are going out there into a movie theater and seeing it and having a big box office is because people still will go out of their way to see an amazing story. That's never going to change. So that is highly reassuring for me as somebody in this world.
Me too. Yeah, I want to go see it. I haven't seen it yet. And I saw little clips of the art department production designer putting the little exquisite little cardboard models together. I'm like,
I've,
man, it looks like they're doing that the
I've heard
right
a lot of
way. And
spoiler alerts, so
that
I'm
made
like,
me
I
want
need
to
to
go
go
see
see it
it.
really soon. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting having people being in a space together. I remember reading something from, I think it was Elon Musk, saying his kid asked, why do people go to restaurants when you can eat the same food at home? And he said he worked out that it was because people want to go out and eat with strangers. And is there a component to that where, why do we go watch movies when we can see them at home? Because do we want to be? I know it's annoying being around people sometimes if they're texting or throwing M&Ms at you, but like, do we want to have that experience? And I having that experience of going to India for the first time last year and seeing how
Yeah.
they treat cinema, very different than America or the UK. It's like really eye opening to me. That's why
Yeah.
they go, is to have a big kind
Yeah,
of
it's
party and sing and
I think
be with your
like the
friends.
younger Gen Z, Gen Alpha, like
Seemingly.
they're gonna boomerang back to more communal in-person experiences because it's our built into our DNA.
Yeah, we have to socialize. It's a need, and I think we've built all of these kind of devices to isolate ourselves and be in individual houses and have individualized
We need
experiences. But
each other.
really, we need each other, and it's community, and we're huge. Yeah, yeah, we're huge on that, and I know you guys are too. And it's wonderful to be able to share time in this way. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to be on the podcast. Is there anything before we wrap that you would like to share with our audience? Any places people can follow you?
Yeah, no, I
Check
just
out
want
the
to
D
say
Noise
thank you,
podcast
Ed,
for sure.
for all those great conversations we've had. We met a few times, and every one of them I really cherish. So thanks for being a great friend.
Likewise, yeah, thank you too. Look forward to another hike and some more eggs and another podcast or two. Yeah, thank you. Any places that people can find your work, or you do
Yeah,
Instagram
I'm
or
pretty active
any
on
things people
LinkedIn,
can
so
check out?
just add me as a friend. Let's chat there, and also dnoisepodcast.com. Check out Joey's VP Land YouTube channel, where it's not just our podcast, but he publishes a bunch of cool stuff on there as well. And a subscribe and a like. I know it sounds cliche, but it really does help. So do that if you can. Yeah.
Do it. Like and
Yes.
subscribe, and like and subscribe to this too. But yeah, definitely check out the show and all the things that the guys do at VP Land and Denoised. It's really, really cool. Hopefully going to see Joey at NAB. Come and check out NAB. If anybody is there, hit us up. We're going to be there for at least two of the days. You can see us at the HP booth. But thanks again, Addy.
Yeah.
Actually, do you have another couple of minutes?
Okay. Let's do the questions.
We do have a couple of questions I just noticed in the chat. All right. So for a filmmaker already working with Unreal and VP, what kinds of short form proof projects would best demonstrate strong creative judgment and practical use of AI tools to studios or creative agencies today?
I mean, just my personal preference is one of the things that generative AI shows the most promise is combining real physical performance. So, like taking camera, capturing actors or yourself, and then modifying that with AI. So, one of the models that I love is Kling 01, Kling 03, where you can input a video and then ask it to change certain aspects of the video, get something out. I think it's limited to 15 seconds. So, yeah, you'd have to make a bunch of cuts. But, just take something really simple like, like a day at the beach or your trip to the grocery store, but make it really fun, right? Like shoot yourself doing it for, I don't know, 5 minutes and then cut it down to a 1 minute short that's easy to consume. And I think if you use quote unquote invisible AI VFX, that'll be really convincing for somebody.
That was made great. Thinking back to what made great VFX reels, because the same kinds of questions come up around what is somewhat the same thing.
It disappears.
That when it's done well, it disappears. And what you're trying to show is what people do a lot. From my perspective, my my advice to people doing VFX reels is show not just what you enjoy or like, but what is the stuff that people do the most. Having like a little bit of like a CG mug on a table or something that shows you would not tell that was not a real mug, and it's a moving camera, so it shows that you can do all the things that would end up being in
100%. Couldn't agree
typical
more.
work that ends up being done. Another question which we got is, the nuance to that is like, go ask people, because in the beginning when I was trying to break into the VFX industry, I went around to all the studios that did VFX and I asked them, what do they use and what do they do? And they all said Maya. So I learned Maya, and they all showed the types of reels that got people in or that got people jobs. And I looked at all of them and just reverse engineered it. It's a great thing to do. Ask. good questions, high mileage questions to the right people. So the last question here is, what is one type of project that feels expensive today but will likely become cheap and common within the next 2 or 3 years? What's the SGI computer equivalent of today's
Wow,
tech
what a great
that is
question.
expensive
Who
and
asked
will
that?
get
That's
thrown out?
amazing. I could chew on
That's
this
2
for
questions.
hours.
I don't know.
What is expensive today is probably any sort of procedural stuff. So let's say you're remaking the 10 commandments, right? Like you're splitting the ocean into two. Like that's a very procedural heavy shot. You're building it in Houdini and things like that. You're compositing in Moses, and I'm just taking an example, right? That is something that'll be incredibly easy to do. AI is just really good at physics when it wants to be. Obviously, it trains on physical data in order to get good, but the compute for AI to generate water and smoke and fire and sims is the same as it is to generate a person. Like it's all the same to an AI model. So, but on the CG and VFX side, as you know, procedural stuff is highly expensive compute wise. And so it's used sparingly. And it's also really hard to set up in Houdini. Like you need a proper Houdini artist and stuff. So I think if you have a show that uses a lot of, I don't know, like a Firestorm backdraft, if you will, like that stuff, I think will be is ripe for big improvement.
I love that movie. Right. Yeah, and it's back to the sort of business mechanics of what comes before the thing that lands on your desk. If the thing is expensive, sometimes it gets nixed at the script level.
Yeah, it's like, no, that's way
Nope,
too
we're not gonna
expensive.
do that
But
shot
now it's like,
'cause
it's
it's gonna
all the
cost too
same.
much.
I could do that shot and this shot at the same time.
And I guess what's the SGI computer equivalent of today's tech?
Honestly, the modern GPU. So if you're looking at Blackwell and some of the newer generation GPUs, they're still relying on the same architecture, but there's just more cores, right? They have more CUDA cores, more ray trace cores and stuff. It's just they're just able to pack more into a single wafer. I think we're going to get to a point where we're more going to be TPU reliant, tensor processing unit reliant. And those are fundamentally way more efficient than a GPU. And we're going to get to a point where you can cram a lot of TPUs into the same space as a regular GPU, but just get like incredible throughput for inference. So it's just a matter of like Google building that stuff. I think they license TPUs, and NVIDIA's in the game of making actual physical hardware, where Google is just kind of making like the architecture for it. So in the future, hopefully we get to a point where TPUs are more commonplace.
Do you think we'll have real-time generative?
100%. Yeah. We're seeing glimpses of that now with Korea. Runway ran near real time on the latest NVIDIA GPU at the latest Jensen keynote. Those are still like traditional models running on GPU. So once we get to a real-time optimized model running on TPU, I think we're gonna get closer and closer to what you are doing in Unreal. Yes.
Real-time interactive
video to video happening real time.
Photorealism. Well, again, Addy, thank you so much. Thanks for sticking around for the questions. Thanks for asking the questions. Thanks to the audience for being here today. And we hope you're all out there chewing at this stuff, being curious and creating and having fun with it. This is a crazy time to be alive. And we're glad that you shared this time with us today.
Thank you, Ed. Thanks Jackie.
Again.
Thanks, viewers.
Thanks, Addy. You bet. Thanks, viewers. See you at NAB, some of you, and see you back on another episode on Tuesday. In fact, we got one coming up pretty hot. So, yeah, take care, everyone. See you soon. Bye for now.